Welcome to another What? What the fuck was that? I don't know. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Living with Audacity. I am your host, Aisha, and it is such a pleasure to be back here with all of you today. So what gems am I dropping today? You need to know when I do these episodes, I'm really intentional about what the topics are. I don't just arbitrarily kind of pick topics. These are topics that are either part of my own journey. They're things that people have shared with me through DM. So again, make sure you like, share, comment, because I do bring up topics that you want to hear about. It's not just about me, but I also want to be sharing the ways that I can help you live audaciously, because that's my vibe. That's what I'm here to do. I'm here to just do all the things so that you step out authentically, unapologetically, and audaciously. So today's topic is a big one, and it's called Moving Beyond the Mask, Dismantling the Pressure to Perform. And I'm going to say, hello, my name is Aisha, and I'm a former person who liked to perform so that other people thought that I was good enough or that I had value. I'm no longer that person, but I'm here to help empower those who are finding themselves in that position right now. So really, today's conversation is about the subtle ways or even the overt pressures that we sometimes feel we need to overperform in order to mask who we are. And one of the reasons why we do that is because we don't recognize our value and our worth. And so we feel like we need to be something else so that other people don't see who we are not at this moment. Okay. I always want to caveat these conversations and say that when you're watching this episode, when you're watching this podcast, when you're listening to me talk, whether it's again through here, through a workshop, that I'm always reflective that where you're at right now is where you're at right now. It does not mean it's going to be your permanent state, that we all have the ability to grow and evolve and become a better version of ourselves. And so right now, if this is where you're at, if you're struggling and wearing a mask that you know you want to take off, but you don't know how to, this is absolutely the episode for you to watch, along with every other episode that Living with Audacity has put out. And so again, I want to share a little bit about my story. So I have always been someone who was confident. I grew up in a household where my parents, again, not just spoke highly to us, but really made sure that we understood who we were, that we valued ourselves, that we loved ourselves. So I have always had a good level of self-confidence. School was fine, entered into the workforce and I was fine. But then I entered into like real workforce and realized that all of who I was not necessarily revered or loved. I shouldn't say loved. It wasn't revered. It was, if anything, it was met with a little bit of, you need to quiet down a little bit. You need to not be so loud. You need to maybe change how you dress. This is legit things that I've experienced. You maybe need to cover those tattoos. Maybe you should think about changing your hair. I will tell you, I had a situation when I was younger where a teacher who I loved very much told my parents that in order to be more appealing as a pianist, because I did piano, I was a piano player, that I would be more appealing if I had straight hair like a European versus braids. Well, I can tell you with the kind of parents that I had who really made sure that my brother and I understood our Blackness and loved our Blackness, that conversation for her did not go well. I also stopped being her student about 6 months later. But again, I haven't been overexposed to things where people needed to silence me, but I've definitely felt not being revered or valued for all of who I was. And so for a really, really long time, like longer than I even like to admit, I wore a mask. I was quieter. I was more demure. I was more, I will say, showed up in a way that I felt other people would accept me. I didn't talk too much. I didn't come off as aggressive, which in my adult grown woman, Black girl age is assertive. I'm not aggressive. I'm very assertive. But I wore a mask for a really long time. And so this is why there's a little bit of passion. I feel like I'm like eating the mic. This is why there's so much passion for me when it comes to this topic around removing the mask because I was exhausted. I would come home after a day's work, look at myself in the mirror and be like, ugh, what an act I had to put on. And it wasn't until a scenario that I've talked about in my previous episodes, you got to go back to see what it is, did I realize that at the end of the day, they were going to judge me regardless. Whether I was loud, my authentic self, I wore fitted clothing, I was exactly what you see right now, or I was this demure, quiet Black girl that everybody just, tended to when they felt was ready, they were going to dislike me regardless. So I might as well undo the mask, remove the mask, punt kick the mask, and be my authentic self. Right? And so we really have to talk about why? Why do we feel like we have to wear a mask? What is compelling us? Now, sometimes it's based on our own, again, inner chatter, our own perspective, our own understanding and devaluing of ourselves. But I will tell you that also comes from experience of things that we've seen, we've heard, and that we've been told about ourselves. Number one, societal expectations, right? Again, as a Black woman, right? We are seen as loud. We're seen as aggressive. We're seen as hostile. Yeah, maybe we are those things, but we're also smart and we're assertive and we're powerful and we're confident and can be demure, but we also can stand our ground and understand that we are great regardless of what is being said. But when you hear that message over and over and over and over again, that societal pressure will sometimes force us to put on a mask. Professional expectations. Right? I work in a very corporate environment. I'm a Black woman. I've got tattoos coming out of everywhere. I have piercings. I have locks. I don't necessarily meet the, what we will say, the code of what working corporate looks like. I had to get okay with that. Right? I had to understand that, again, if you were more focused on my physical appearance and what was coming out of my mouth or my brain, that was your loss. But it took me a really long time to get to that place. Cultural and familial expectations. Well, if there isn't one way in which we can wear a mask, sometimes it's our own family and cultural expectations that come with it, right? As a woman, you're supposed to be like this. As a male, you're supposed to be like this. As a boy, as a girl, we see how those cultural and familial nuances can shape how we show up, that we don't always get to show up as our most authentic self because it's not revered, it's not seen, it's not culturally appropriate, it's not how you're supposed to be. Right? How are you going to get a man? How are you going to get a partner? How are you going to make friends if you are just your full, authentic, out there self? We have to be honest about how we, within our own communities, could inadvertently, unintentionally, or intentionally creating greater harm where we're not allowing ourselves and our children and our young people to be their most authentic self. Right? And we have to think about, how does masking show up? Because it doesn't just show up in this bit of shapeshift or pretending to be somebody else. It can show up as people pleasing, and that's a big one. I get a lot of that, from clients that I work with, people that I coach, workshops that I do. They're like, I'm so tired of always being available to people. I'm so tired of people pleasing and people kind of sucking the life out of me. When you are operating behind a mask, it means that you are giving more of yourself than you can give. But because you don't want people to see that you don't have time or you don't want to, then we overdo it. People pleasing is a really big one. Overachievement. So sometimes when we feel that we are not adequate enough, we will actually overdo it. Right? We will make sure our house is spotless. We'll make sure that we freaking craft everything in our house. We'll make sure that our kids get bento boxes every day for foods that we make by ourselves because we grew the freaking granola in our garage. I'm being dramatic, but that's how it shows up. That we overdo it as a means of demonstrating that we aren't this inadequate person that we believe ourselves to be or that we've been told we are. Right? Curating a life that looks perfect. Listen, I will never forget when I had my daughter. So I have 3 kids. I had my first daughter. Everything was fine. Life was, everything was good. And then our second daughter came along and I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep both of my kids home. There's no way this is real. I'm not going to put my daughter in daycare. I'm going to make sure that I can take care of both because that's what you do. Let me tell you something. 3 days. Okay, I lasted 3 days of having both of my children home. My eldest was 3, my youngest was newborn, 2.5. And I called my husband and I said, listen, I don't know what we're going to do, but she's going into daycare. But that whole perception of like what it meant to be a mom and to be able to take care of my kids all day lasted 3 whole days. And I will tell you, I got flack. People are like, oh, you're putting her in daycare? Oh, but you have another baby. Like, you're home. Yeah, I'm home. I have another baby, and the first one's going to daycare. But I had to get past that expectation of what it meant to be a good mom. I mean, I think about kind of even the activities that I put my eldest daughter in. She was in everything. Swimming, gymnastics, you name it, she was in it. She was exhausted. She hated all of it. But because I had this perception of what being a good mom looked like, that you let her do everything and you made sure that she participated in every program, here I was driving across Durham region, taking her to activities that I had to drag her out the car half the time. Right? But it was a mask that I was putting on because I had this idea of what being for me in this case, what being a perfect mom looked like. Right? So you need to think about like, what are the ways in which you have put on this mask where you needed to be what you felt others needed you to be because this is how you had value. This is the way in which you showed your worth, right? There is major tolls for wearing a mask. Major tolls. Number 1, emotional, right? The emotional toll of always being on, always feeling great, always like being like perfect. That is what we call like toxicity at its best. That we don't even have the ability to feel sad, to be angry, to be frustrated, to feel resentful, to be bitter, and then work ourselves through that. There is such an emotional toll at wearing a mask. And wearing a mask often comes in this space of like perfection, right? That if we are good and we're thriving and we're loving life and we love our kids and we love our husband and we love our family, like all is good, what a mask to wear. It's okay to be annoyed at your husband. It's okay to be frustrated by your kids. It's okay to dislike your mother-in-law. I don't. So before anybody starts a rumor, I love my mother-in-law. I love my in-laws. But like, let's be honest, right? We are pressured to be all great things and are not given the freedom and the ability to just feel how we feel. So there's a real emotional toll that comes with, again, with hiding behind a mask. Another one is identity dilution. You lose yourself when you wear a mask all the time. Are you sure, or you're not sure, am I being myself or am I being who people need me to be? People that are in your life that know you. You ever been in a situation where you're like out with like your people, like the people that know you, and then you encounter other people that know a different version of you, and then the people that know you watch you be a different version of yourself, and they're like, what is happening? Like, what just went on there? Because I watched you shapeshift into somebody else that you're not. That identity dilution is major because it exhausts ourselves of being our authentic being. I don't know that we always realize how exhausting it is not to be ourselves. I think we sometimes convince ourselves, and again, I was there, I've convinced myself that no, I'm okay. I can be a little bit different. I can be what people need me to be. It's exhausting mentally and emotionally. Because when you step back into who you were supposed to be or who you are, you realize how much energy you were expelling not to be yourself, right? So we really have to think about kind of that identity dilution and how it can create harm to ourselves. Relationship strain, right? When you are with someone that you're watching not be themselves, oh my goodness, it creates a strain because you're like, you're not being yourself. Give people the gift to decide if they want to be with you or don't want to be with you based on who you are authentically, right? I don't want someone to like me because of how I appear in a particular manner. I want you to like me because you get all of it. You get the rawness, you get loud, you get the, I kind of like a little bit of drama. I can be kind, I can be funny. I want you to like me for all of who I am. I don't want you to be connected with me because of the mask that I wore. Now you think that's my authentic self. That's where strain creates. That's where strain happens. It's because when you are now tired of wearing that mask and you unveil all of who you are, people are like, that's not who I thought I was with. That's not the friend I thought you were. That's not the partner I married. Hear it a lot. That's not who I married. That's not who I was dating. That's not who I got with. Now listen, people change. And sometimes the authentic version of someone is the authentic version of someone. But, we have to be really careful around how, again, this mask that we wear can negatively impact our relationships. So there's a powerful reminder as well, right? Around this, that masks may protect you temporarily. So I want to say this, that there are situations in our lives where we may have to not be our most authentic self because it is a protective mechanism. So it's always important that I caveat that, because I'm mindful that people are in situations that are not safe, that are harmful, that are dangerous. And so sometimes you really do have to wear a mask as a means of protecting yourself, right? But when you are out of that situation, when you find yourself in a better predicament or in a safer space, again, we have to understand that to become our full, audacious, creative, unapologetic self requires us to undo that mask, let it go, kick it away, and be our most authentic self. Right? And so how do we start to dismantle this process? As I said, I'm someone that it really is about action. It's great to talk about these things, but I like to put verbs in my sentence. How do we start to dismantle the need to wear a mask? Number one is awareness. You know yourself. You know when you are not being authentic and when you're being authentic. So keep it real. Like, you don't need to prove to me that you are your authentic self. You only need to prove to yourself. You have to look at yourself in the mirror. You have to put your head on your pillow at night. And if you can't go to bed or look in the mirror knowing full well that I have been myself today, then that's a level of inner work that you need to do for yourself. Reframing. Reframing is a big part of living audaciously and just evolving and growing as a person. Masking is not a failure. Right? Masking is not a failure. It's a signal. Everything we do in life, every experience we have is an opportunity to learn and grow, right? I talked about this last season when we talk about fear and failure, that we fear failing because, oh no, we've made a mistake. No, what have you learned? If you're masking, what are you listening, seeing, hearing? What signal are you being given about yourself that you now need to tap inwards? Right? What are some practical tools? What are things that you can start to do in order to understand the ways in which you need to maybe stop? Maybe it might be difficult to stop, but at least to take recognition that you are masking, right? That you're not being your authentic self. This is a really great one, and I found these. Number one, set micro boundaries. Start small by expressing your authentic feelings or preferences. Small. You don't have to be out here and be like, listen, I know I was doing this before, I'm not doing it anymore. Warm people up to your authentic being, because remember, they're used to who they think you are, not who you are. So set micro boundaries that allow people to slowly undo an understanding about who they think you are, so that you're creating opportunities for them to understand who you really are. Self-affirmations, I think I say this over and over and over and over and over again. Speaking about yourself sets the tone about what you believe about yourself. If you're out here believing that you're not good enough, that you need to be what other people need you to be, then you will start to convince yourself of that, right? Again, self-affirmations doesn't need to be like, oh my God, I'm so pretty. Oh my God, I'm gorgeous. But it can be like, I'm good enough. Where I'm at today, I'm good enough, right? Be mindful, again, what you say about yourself to yourself, because that then becomes your reality. Gradual unmasking, which is very similar to setting micro boundaries. Again, when we are creating a mask or when we're living within a mask, we're doing it for a reason. It's for protection, for some reason, emotionally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, whatever that looks like. So don't seek the desire to completely undo the mask out the gate. Do it gradually. Do it bit by bit, right? Because you yourself have to get comfortable with the unveiling and becoming your authentic self versus who you have been pretending to be essentially this like whole time. And the other one is curate your environment, right? If you're in a space with people, places, and things that are fake, then you're going to maintain that mask, right? What environment are you in? Who are you connected with? Who is loving you or not loving you enough to say, you know what? I don't see you being yourself, and who you are is worthy, is valued, right? So be mindful of your environment, right? Celebrate the freedom and authenticity. I feel like season 2 is going to be all about that I'm literally going to put those two words together, that freedom really comes from being authentic self. I recognize that it is not black and white, that it is not easy to just be who you authentically are, especially if you've spent a long period of time not being who you are for all the reasons that I talked about: social norms, societal expectations, cultural and familial expectations, things that you've heard, things that you've experienced, right? But there's such a depth of freedom that comes, and a freedom that no one can actually give you. And it's not a freedom that you can grab, it's actually a freedom that you feel. When you feel free to be who you are, and you are, not that you don't care what other people think, but there's an element of like not caring what other people think. I don't know. It's something you actually have to experience. It's very difficult to say what it looks like because it doesn't show up the same for everyone. Certainly as a coach, it's something that I see when I coach people and I watch a client start almost in this cage box and they work through the process of like emancipating and growing. It literally shows up like in their skin, in their posture, in their hair, how they speak, the way they enunciate. It is almost like an unveiling and a shedding. So do not diminish the freedom that comes in being your most authentic self, right? Journal, right? I mean, journal, I've been journaling for I'm 46, 33 years. I've been journaling, right? And I can see in my own journey where I have showed up as not my authentic self and the things that I've been given and the things that I've learned and how I've evolved in my most authentic version. This before you is the most authentic version. Is it a version that everybody loves? Probably not. Is it a version that I love? Absolutely. Right? So we really have to be aware of the ways in which, we are mindful and tapping into ourselves. And journaling can really do that because it becomes your own time capsule. You get to kind of mark your own journey, where you're growing, where you're evolving. What are the things that you're letting go of, what you're bringing into your life, right? And so as always, because, I always have a challenge, not just for you to like, share, comment, but I have a challenge, right? I want you to think about the ways in which you have masked yourself. Maybe you're not masked anymore. Maybe you're actively deep in a mask to the point that you don't even recognize who you are, right? But be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself. The first step in unmasking is just to admit the fact that you are actively masking, that you're not being your authentic self for whatever reason, right? The second piece to that is identify why. Why do you feel that being yourself is not good enough? Why do you feel that not showing up as your most authentic self will not be revered in value? Is it fear? Is it disappointment? Are there cultural pieces in there? Are there expectations that have been placed on you that you can't meet, that you feel you'll be disappointing other people? Be real about this process, right? Everything that I talk about in Living with Audacity isn't just superficial. It's actually about doing the deep work. And if you don't do the deep work, then living that audacious life becomes really difficult. Again, you're not doing it for me. You shouldn't be doing it for your partner, your kids. You should actually be doing it for yourself, right? Stop moving and living behind the mask. I'm saying it very like in the most simple way, recognizing that this is not an easy process, but step beyond the mask, right? Think about what it is that you desire for yourself and let your authentic self shine. Because believe me, who's meant for you will be with you. Who isn't meant for you probably was based on that mask and that they would never, they actually don't deserve to be in your space, right? So be mindful of that. What is it that you get to shed by also leaving that mask behind, right? Remember that audacity begins with authenticity. And remember that freedom, like the freedom to be yourself is where true audacity and audacious living exists. And that's a wrap. I want to wish you a great day. I don't know if you're watching it at night. I don't know if you're watching it in the morning. Either way, I want to wish you a great day. Like, comment, share, and I will see you next episode.